that we applaud their achievements, and that we continue to support the peaceful ideals to which the Olympic movement was meant to stand. Join us tonight as NBC Sports proudly presents the 1980 U.S. Olympic Trials. This NBC Sports exclusive is brought to you by the Miller Brewing Company, brewers of Miller High Life. You've got the time, we've got the beer. And by Kodak, for 100 years, America's storyteller. Nestled along the banks of the St. Johns River in northern Florida is the Jacksonville Veterans Memorial Coliseum. And inside tonight, America's finest gymnasts will be competing for berths on the U.S. Olympic team. Live tonight from Jacksonville, Florida, it's the United States Olympic Trials for men and women in gymnastics. Good evening, I'm Brian Gumbel. My great pleasure to welcome you to an event tonight that is definitely important, figures to be exciting, and may even be emotional. The United States boycott of the Moscow Olympics is fact. You know that. The 22 women and 16 men who will be competing here tonight have absolutely no chance of competing in Moscow this summer. But for each and every one of them, just making an Olympic team is at least partial fulfillment of a lifelong dream that they have of necessity had to scale down because of events far beyond their control. The 6 men and 6 women who will gain Olympic berths tonight will go on a 5-city, 2-week tour of the United States and compete in 2 meets in Europe. For most of them, that will have to do, because by 1984, their Olympic opportunity will have passed them by. It would take a calloused heart indeed to ignore the plight of these young athletes who have strived for athletic perfection all their life, only to pay a very dear price because the world they live in is clearly imperfect. Still, the athletic arena is a tough illusion to come by. But 4 of the young ladies who will be competing here tonight have at least earned from the judges the number that Bo Derek made famous. And to elaborate on that point and tell us a bit more about the young ladies we'll be seeing tonight, let's go upstairs to my NBC colleagues who've been covering the gymnastics circuit together for the past 3 years for NBC, Charlie Jones and Nancy Thies.
Thank you, Brian. And you said 2 key words. First, Nancy, it was emotional. And have you seen an outpouring like tonight when the contestants were all introduced? The other key word was perfection, and because of the search of perfection, we have seen this year the greatest year in the history of women's gymnastics in the United States.
Our women have certainly made a name for themselves, and one of the reasons is the new scoring in women's gymnastics in the United States. It's an add-on scoring, and it encourages difficulty.
And there are 4 young ladies in the competition that have already scored a 10 or better in competition. So perhaps tonight live, once again, we will see the magic number.
And Charlie, 10 may be perfect for Bo Derek, but no longer in women's gymnastics. The women can get as high as a 10.6. Julianne McNamara received a 10.0 on the uneven parallel bars. Many people think she's one of the best bar workers in the world. And Beth Klein adds a lot of class to the floor exercise, a dynamic tumbler. She received a 10.0 on this event at our national championships. Marcia Frederick, perhaps a household name now. She was our first world champion on the uneven parallel bars in 1978. And this year, she proved she's on top again by winning this event at our national championships and getting a 10.1. And Tracy Talavera, America's sweetheart, got a 10.0 on the vault.
And tonight, 6 young ladies and an alternate will leave here as members of the United States Olympic team. And Nancy, as you know, that is an honor that they will carry with them the rest of their lives. They'll be competing in 4 events.
First, we have them on the vault and the uneven parallel bars, and on to the balance beam and the floor exercise.
And now let's move on to Brian Gumbel.
Okay, Charlie, thank you much. It is an oddity, perhaps, that while it is the American women who gain the most notoriety in gymnastics, it is the American men who have made the greatest strides on the world scene. The gentleman to my right is the premier male gymnast in this country. He is, of course, Kurt Thomas, not competing tonight because of a back injury. He'll be working with me down on the floor. The gentleman to my left is Marshall Avner, twice an Olympian himself. He'll be working with Charlie upstairs. And Marshall, just because Kurt's not competing tonight does not mean that we have a weak field.
Not at all, Brian. Kurt will certainly be the name that will be remembered most by American gymnastics fans, but there is tremendous depth coming out of the United States these days. Let's look at 3 of them. First, we have James Hartung, 19 years old, a junior at the University of Nebraska. James is a very powerful, dynamic gymnast. He will be nursing the effects, however, of a heel bruise he suffered last week in the practice gym. That's James Hartung from Nebraska.
And here's the man who kept me on my toes throughout my career, Bart Connor. Bart is the defending world champion on the parallel bars. He's competing here tonight with hopes of making his second Olympic team from the University of Oklahoma.
That's Bart Connor from the University of Oklahoma. We have Peter Vidmar, a very, very well-coached, smooth, accurate gymnast. Peter is only 18 years old, one of the youngest competitors in tonight's competition. He was thrust into the national limelight just 1 month ago when he captured the championship of the USA in Columbus, Ohio. Peter Vidmar from UCLA. Tonight, the competition will be divided into two halves. In the first half of the competition, you will see for the men, the floor exercise, the pommel horse, and the rings. In the second half of this evening's competition, you will witness the vault, the parallel bars, and the high bar.
Okay, for the past 2 nights here in Jacksonville, we have watched a great outpouring of affection as the men and the women have gone through their compulsory exercises. Tonight, as they move on to the optionals, we'll not only look for the great outpouring of affection, but also a great outpouring of talent. We'll get to it right after this commercial break. All around, you see Bart Connor sitting on top. Remember, the first 6 make the Olympic team. The 7th goes as an alternate. That right now stands at Phil Cahoy. As we take a look at the women's side, our leader is Tracy Talavera, the young 13-year-old. Marcia Frederick, one of the favorites in the competition, is 4th. Jackie Casello in the alternate spot right now. And Kathy Johnson preparing for the vault. We've got a 5-ring circus going on right here. Lower left, you see it. It's the vault in action right now. Let's go up top live to Charlie Jones. Charlie?
Next up in the vault will be Kathy Johnson. This was the first of 2 vaults, Nancy.
Charlie, Kathy has gone through quite a bit in her career. For many felt that she was going to be our best all-around competitor at the Olympics in Moscow. She had a lot of pressure on her during 3 years of competition. She took a hiatus. She's been out of competition for a few months, just training, and I've never seen her look better. Layout, Sukahara.
Good vault. And that experience of Kathy Johnson, the oldest competitor here at 20, that seems kind of strange, but it's true.
That experience is certainly going to help her. Kathy has been able to handle a lot of pressure. This vault shows it. She's a determined girl. She gets good push off the horse, great height. It's a difficult vault because she's supposed to do it with a straight body.
And after the first rotation night, she was in the number 4 spot, right in the middle of the pack. She doesn't look that pleased. A 9.75, by the way, on either of the 2 vaults would move her into 2nd place in the standings. That would be after 2 rotations, the midway point for the women.
The girls have to do 2 different vaults in tonight's competition, although they still take the best score of the 2 vaults.
Kathy Johnson getting set now for her 2nd vault. She was the national champion 1978. That was really her best year.
Full twisting Sukahara. That's a new vault for her. She did it great.
Kathy Johnson.
Kathy is happy with that one.
And the reason that I mentioned that is she ever, the experience, because the tension here tonight, you can chop it up 6 different ways for the women because of the 6 different places.
Look at how clean Kathy twists that vault. She lands it, just a small step there.
So that could well move her up in the standings to, she cannot reach 1st, but she can get into 2nd or 3rd and move up from the 4th position that she is currently in.
If there's one thing that characterizes Kathy is she is so determined. I saw her during the warm-ups the other day. We came up, we talked to each other.
It is a 9.8. So she is now in 2nd place. She does it, Kathy Johnson.
She told me she wanted it, and she looks like she's on her way.
And look at the fans here, and it has been this way since the opening ceremony. Now, this is the end of this rotation. And as we set up for the next 2 events for the women, the next 3 events for the men. Just moments ago, Marcia Frederick was on the uneven bars. Now, she started tonight in 1st place. She started the bars in 7th place. We'll follow up on that story in a moment.
Charlie, I keep thinking I've seen Marcia do her best bar routine, but this was outstanding. Goes to the ultimate on every single trick. Here she goes. Nice 1.5 twist. Back up rise, full twist. Look at the extension. Her arms are so straight. Right up to another hand
her score a 9-9, which moved her from 7th to 5th place. Now remember, the top 6, 7th is the alternate place. Now remember, the top 6, 7th is the alternate in the U.S. team. Now this I think is where Marcia started it all at age 5, which is just about right if you want to be a world-class gymnast. She is 17 now. We said she had trouble, dropped from 1st to 7th. Here's why. Nancy.
She had a slow run on vaulting, didn't get good push off the horse, and landed both her vaults sitting down.
And that was an opening disaster, but now she does have the experience. She becomes part of the story here. The leader dropping to 7th, and now back up to 5th. Let's go to Brian Gumbel.
Okay, Charlie, whatever Marcia Frederick does, it is news here because at 17, she is one of the veteran competitors, a world champion and stoical performer. But Charlie Jones had a chance to chat with Miss Frederick, found her quite personable.
We've all seen Marcia Frederick when she performs, and she's so serious. You're not really that way, are you?
Not in reality. When I get out on the gym floor, I'm serious. But when I'm, I like to have fun.
What kind of fun do you like to have?
All kinds of fun.
You're 17 years old. That's getting up there in the world of gymnastics. Are you over the hill?
No, I'm probably just climbing up the slopes, really, but I don't think I'm over the hill.
Do you feel like you missed anything in high school because of all the traveling and gymnastics?
Probably the social aspect, but I went to an all-girls school, so, there wasn't much fun there at all.
What about boyfriends?
What about them?
Don't you have any around the world?
No.
In the gym, she's very serious, okay? Solely because of concentration. There's a lot of pressure on her and all the meets that she goes to, and she needs to be serious. She can't let her mind wander.
I try to treat every competition as it is my last and most important. And, the Olympic trials is still the Olympic trials. Still qualify for the Olympic team, and to be on the Olympic team is an honor in itself.
Now let's do a thing where I will just name names of gymnasts. You give me your reaction.
Okay.
Kurt Thomas.
Married.
Bart Connor.
Available.
Jim Hartung.
Sexy.
Phil Cahoy.
Hey. Good guy. Real nice.
Tracy Talavera.
Good kid. Funny.
Julianne McNamara.
Compact. Strong. Bull.
Marcia Frederick.
If indeed Marcia Frederick is a stoical person, then Charlie Jones was definitely interviewing an imposter. Marcia Frederick very much in the thick of it right here. We've got lots more to come from Jacksonville, and we'll get to it all right after this commercial timeout. The rings, the floor exercise, and the pommeled horse. You see Bart Connor sitting on top, holding a healthy lead over Jim Hartung. Peter Vidmar has now dropped back to 3rd place. In the women's standings, after the uneven bars and after the vault, Tracy Talavera sitting up top. Kathy Johnson, Marcia Fredericks, thank that 9-9 has to a degree offset that 8.75 she suffered in the vault. They've still got to compete in the floor exercise and the balance beam. You remember I told you Vidmar had dropped back to 3rd in part because his floor exercise, well, let's just say he had problems with it. And Charlie, I go up to you for those problems.
All right, Marshall. Peter Vidmar is the national champion, freshman UCLA, but he did have problems. Is that lack of experience at this level?
Well, Charlie, Peter Vidmar is 18 years old. That sounds like a ripe old age next to Kathy Johnson at 20 and Marcia Frederick at 17 on the women's side. But actually, 18 puts Peter in the position of being one of the babies in the men's competition. The men, of course, don't reach their physical peak till about age 22 to 26. So Peter Vidmar has a long way to go. Now, this is certainly Peter's first Olympic trials, and he's suffering a little bit from the nervousness. It's a very confusing competition. It's going on very quickly, and there's more competitors on the floor now than they ever will be in an Olympic game. Toward the end of this routine, you'll see how the pressure can affect the youth of gymnastics. So far, he's doing extremely well. No sign of tension. Beautiful dive roll showing nice flexibility. Peter's been very well coached, but when you put your body through an emotional and a psychological obstacle course, you never know what's going to happen. Getting deep into the corner to leave enough room for the dismount. Here comes the dismount, a double back somersault. He has to get up in the air. Overspins, lands on the heels, and just like that, you landed your behind, 5/10 of a deduction.
What causes that? Are you too keyed up?
I think so. I think he got too much height, overspun the somersault by just a tad, landed on the heels instead of flat on his feet.
All right, now earlier, Bart Connor in competition. For that coverage, let's go down to Bryant and Kurt Thomas.
Okay, Charlie, thank you. It was interesting as Kurt and I sat here and watched Bart Connor follow Peter Vidmar. Who is this, Kurt? Look at this.
Well, I don't know who that is. There's Bart. That's Bart Connor.
A very young Bart Connor, age 9, now standing 22, and indeed a bit more talented. Let's get back a little bit. We saw Vidmar fall. Connor followed him on the Florex, and you made the comment to me that he was taking it easy, going conservative. Was that because he had an opening, or was it planned ahead of time that way?
I think it was planned ahead of time. I think because of the compulsory session, it was too close, and Bart is playing it conservatively to win.
Okay, he is getting set for his vault. Why don't you tell us what the fans are going to see?
He does a Sukahara in a layout position, which is a stretch position, and he does it quite well. This has been a very good vault for him in the past. He was in the finals in the World Championships with this vault. Very good vault. He took one big step backward, but that won't hurt him very much.
Score it for me.
I'd say around a 9.6. It's good in the area, good pre-flight, good distance from the horse.
Bart Connor, definitely the class of the men's field. Now that Kurt Thomas is standing next to me. University of Oklahoma, one more time.
Here he gets good pre-flight off the board, good form, good push off the horse, which is necessary to get height. Opens up in the layout position or straight position. Good landing except for one step backwards.
Now, a little bit earlier, Connor was nursing an injury. He had an ice bag to it. Did you have a chance to find out what his problem was?
No, but he has an ace bandage on his bicep, and I think that's part of the problem. I think he's had a minor pull.
He's still got Florex, or rather, he's still got the parallel bars and the high bar to do. How much is it going to affect him?
Not very much. I think parallel bars are his best event, and I think horizontal bar, he's very good. So I don't think he's going to have any problem taking this meet.
Okay, we should note that music you're hearing in the background is not the accompaniment.
Who makes that last spot? That's what it's all about.
Charlie, this is the name of the game in an Olympic trials. Obviously, you'd like to win the meet. But when you come to a meet like this, you say to yourself, if I can only come in 6th, I'll settle for 7th and be the alternate. But you want to go home calling yourself an Olympian. This is what you've worked for. This is what you aimed at your whole life long. Sure, you might win an Olympic gold medal, but the timing has to be right. You've got to be lucky. You've got to be healthy. It's got to be a good day for you. The Olympic trials, making the team, is a much more realistic goal, one of which they've dreamed about in full reality for many, many years. All of a sudden, Tim LaFleur is right on the borderline, and it's facing him square in the face.
And notice the age, 24. This is his last year of competition. This is his final goal as a competitor. And can he achieve it tonight? He has 3 more events. Tim LaFleur, high bar.
I'm pulling for him. I know his wife is pulling for him. One of the few married gymnasts in the field. I wonder where his thoughts are right now, Charlie. Good start. His coach, Fred Roethlisberger, standing underneath, spotting that very dangerous front somersault catch. Scoops the legs in between the arms. He's in inverted giant position. A full turn to an eagle position. Almost stalled out on that handstand. Managed to keep going in the right direction. Here comes the dismount. Come on the feet. Yes, okay, and I think he's in the running, Charlie.
And that could well move Tim LaFleur up into the magic 7 on the floor exercise. Julianne McNamara, she just started opening tumbler run. Nancy had some problems.
She had some problems, Charlie, but in warm-ups, she was doing the same tumbling run and landing on the floor, falling down, and at least she stood up on her double back. So far, she's doing okay.
And Julianne has had some problems. She was tied for 3rd starting tonight. She has dropped down. She is 7th. That's the alternate position right now.
Charlie, in the compulsory round before it started yesterday, Julianne's coach, Dick Mulvihill, scratched her. He said the ankle injury that she has was just too much for her. She couldn't handle it. She said, I want to compete. I want to try to be on that Olympic team. He said, okay, you've got to go for it. And so now she is. She's really grinning and bearing it. Here she goes for her last tumbling run. Double back, and she makes it. I can't believe it. It's impossible to do a double back at the end of a routine, and with an injured ankle, it's fantastic. Oh, I'm
I'm so happy for her. She made it through the routine.
14-year-old Julianne McNamara, the National Academy of Gymnastics in Eugene, Oregon, and even she breathes a sigh of relief when she comes off of the floor exercise mat. What kind of competition we have had here, and still more to come. Let's go to Brian.
Okay.
The National Academy of Gymnastics in Eugene, Oregon, and even she breathes a sigh of relief when she comes off of the floor exercise mat. What kind of competition we have had here, and still more to come. Let's go to Brian.
Okay, Charlie, we will get Julianne's score in just a bit, but I should tell you my ace scorer down here, Kurt Thomas, came very close on Bart Connor's vault. He set a 9.6. It came out to a 9.55. We'll be back with lots more from the Olympic trials right after these messages from your local station. Florida, the 1980 U.S. Olympic gymnastic trials for men and women. Bryant Gumbel and Kurt Thomas down on the floor. Up in the booth, Charlie Jones is being joined by Marshall Abner and Nancy Thies. Let's go on upstairs to Charlie. I think he's got some action. Chaz?
Next up on the parallel bars will be Jim Hartung. He started tonight in third. He has moved up to second. He was second in the national championships, first in the NCAA championships. Now, before he starts, let me update a couple of scores. Tim LaFleur had a 9.6 on the high bar. That could move him right up into that magic circle. And with a 9.5 for Julianne McNamara in the floor exercise. So now that we've updated, I love the hairstyle when you're that young.
Beautiful, just beautiful. Jim Hartung competing with the number 113 on his back. I don't think he considers 13 a lucky number. You'd never guess it by the expression on this Cornhusker face. But Jim Hartung is actually known around the Nebraska gym for his sense of humor. Out of Omaha South High School in Omaha, Nebraska, the powerful Jim Hartung. A conservative peach basket to a handstand. I'm sure he wanted that to fly to a handstand. Good solid scoots to a handstand. A Diamondov, made famous by the Soviet gymnast who did it in 1964. Back toss, a little bit too far, went over, had to swing down immediately. Straddle cut catch, oh, and there's some problems. Right there, we saw his arms buckle. He must have lost at least 1 to 2/10 of a point. He's keeping his cool, keeping the error to a minimum, gets off clean. One step backwards, I would go about 9.6, 9.7.
Is he getting a little conservative right now?
Charlie, in an Olympic trials, there's no such thing as anything but conservative. It's a defensive ball game.
All right, let's go down to Brian.
Okay, Charlie, thank you much. Jim Hartung appears not to be too pleased with that. How did you see it, Kurt?
No, I think he made a little mistake on his back toss. And here's his double back. He also made a little mistake, a step backward. But he's nursing that injury, so not too bad of a routine.
All righty, we're going to switch on across the floor, and now we are about to be treated to something very special, and that is Ron Gallimore on the vault. Super Jets.
Ron does a layout Sukahara with a full twist, which is very difficult. I don't think anyone in the world does this vault, and he does it very well. And to note, Ron has very, very good technique off the horse. He's got a good push, and it's not just those strong legs that he has. He scored a couple 10-0s on this vault, and I know he'll be pulling in around a 9.8 right here.
Watching Ron Gallimore get up off the ground is one of the great treats in the world of sport. Watch it right here.
Good push. Good ball. 2/10 of a deduction maybe on the landing. I'd say 9.8.
The son of Chicago Bears running back, former great Willie Gallimore. This is Ron Gallimore's specialty. This in the floor X. Won an NCAA championship doing it. Now one more time.
Watch what I was talking about on the technique. He's got a great push off the horse. Straight body position, which is very difficult. Legs straight. Looks for the landing right there. Steps in and takes a little hop. He's got to be pleased with that.
And as you were telling me yesterday, you have to have the pre-flight, get your altitude, and then a post-flight, and his technique is exceptional.
That's right, and he's great on this event.
Indeed, it was interesting. You were telling me that you knew Ron back when he was, one more time, a Tallahassee tumbling tot.
He was a Tallahassee tumbling tot, started tumbling on the street, and we kind of turned him into an all-arounder. He came and worked with us for the Junior Olympic program.
Ron Gallimore checking back over his shoulder. We, along with you, are awaiting his score. But you liked it, and he has got to be pleased.
This is one of his bread and butter events, and you know that he's worked hard on it and done a lot of work on this vault, so I think he'll score well.
Ron Gallimore's father, Willie, died in a car accident when he was just 4 years old. Thought of following in his father's footsteps. A 9-9.
I was wrong. They gave it to him.
And he's pleased.
That was a super vault. He deserves it. No one else in the meet does that vault, and no one else in the world does that vault.
And to top it all off, he is a local favorite, a big crowd favorite here from nearby Tallahassee, and he's delighted. The crowd loves it. Let's go upstairs to Charlie. I think Marcia Frederick next up.
Ron Gallimore currently in 4th place going into this rotation, obviously with that 9-9. He is going to move up a slot, maybe 2. We'll be moving now to the beam. Marcia Frederick is the next competitor. She started tonight. Nancy, again, for those that may just have joined us, she started in 1st place, had a problem in the vault, got it back in the bars, so she was starting 1st, she dropped to 7th, and now she's in 5th place.
And Charlie, the balance beam, boy, what an event. We all figure it's the event that'll either make us or break us as competitors. It's only 4 inches wide. It's really tough to keep your concentration.
All right, now while that's going on, Kathy Johnson is getting set for the floor exercise. So we'll be covering both Marcia Frederick on the beam and Kathy on the floor exercise. Kathy currently in 2nd place.
Charlie, there's been a new rule in the floor exercise. Instead of just using one instrument for your accompaniment, the girls can now use an orchestration. And Kathy has chosen to do that. In my opinion, she's chosen the appropriate music, too. Let's listen.
Kathy Johnson, floor exercise. We ask her what goes through her mind during the floor exercise. Her thoughts.
Well, I think about each and every move that I do so that the audience can feel everything that I'm feeling, so that it comes from my heart. And then when I get to the tumbling, I have to try and think of tumbling instead of dance, and to try and be powerful and yet still try and be beautiful.
Charlie, look at the dance that Kathy... She's just unbelievable as a dancer. When she was in the Soviet Union, the Soviets said, "We have nothing like your Kathy Johnson. She is so balletic, so graceful." And because of that, they've decided to go back to the ballet, the classical style of dancing in floor exercise.
And a 9-0 would put Kathy Johnson in 1st place.
What an honor for somebody who's given our sport so much.
She's always been caught in between. The classic style early, the classic style may follow her, and she becomes the only link between the two. Let's just watch her and enjoy. Marcia Frederick on the beam.
Very nice routine, Charlie.
A true classic gymnast.
And Kathy says it all with her heart, I think.
Oh, she loves it. Now let's go over to Marcia.
The nice punch-front somersault. As I started to say, the balance beam is a tough event. You've got to handle it emotionally and physically. You have to block out the fact that this arena is packed with people, that there are 4 other events going on. Concentrate on what you've trained on. Nice back extension roll. Good solid aerial walkover. And another one. Marcia is determined to make that team.
She's fighting back from a disastrous start on the vault.
Double twisting dismount. Great routine.
She may not be all the way back, but boy, she shows a lot of heart. She should make the team, don't you think, Nancy? If she keeps this up.
A good chance.
We don't have the score yet on Kathy Johnson, and so while they're still tabulating, no, it's going to be posted. Kathy Johnson a 9-7. She moves into 1st place. They just posted the score. Let's go down to Brian.
Okay, Charlie, a 9-7 for Kathy Johnson. You see it right there. We are seeing an amazing display of seasoned veterans like Kathy Johnson and Marcia Frederick. They're the old ladies of this group. We'll come back with Marcia's score on the beam, as well as much, much more from Jacksonville right after this commercial break. trials for men and women. Marcia Frederick has just finished scoring a 9.65 on the balance beam. And if you don't think you can appreciate that, you try doing it on less than 4 inches.
Hard to believe when I did a back somersault on the balance beam in 1972, it was the first one done in the Olympic Games. And since then, in 8 years, the difficulty on this event has skyrocketed. Because of that, a few years ago, they padded the balance beam so it would cushion the fall of the girls or the landing and prevent injury. Believe it or not, it's all done on 4 inches.
Indeed, there it is. All leads a grinding gymnastics life beginning every day at 6 a.m.
Sometimes, you get there in the morning and you just sort of get on the bar and think, I don't want to do this. But after you get going, it doesn't, it's not too bad. I'm pretty much used to it because we've been doing it since, the summer, and so I'm used to it and everything.
Few young athletes in any sport put in a harder day than Tracy. After a grueling workout in the gym each morning, she joins other children her age in the classroom each afternoon. The Eugene, Oregon Board of Education allows Tracy Talavera and the others at the Gymnastics Academy to attend school in the afternoon. There they get their basic academic subjects crammed into just a couple of hours of classroom work.
I think that the costs are heavy in terms of social life. These young people work out 7 hours a day, plus carry their regular school load and do their homework and so forth. There's little time for anything else. I think that's a cost.
Well, I have a few friends in classes that I see, because we have the same classes every day and I see them. But, I don't really know them or anything. So I have friends to talk to at school, but I don't know that good.
After school, Tracy works with weights, continuing on a routine that she has followed since she moved in with the Mulville Hills 3 years ago with the blessing of her parents in San Francisco.
I figure it costs about $5,000 a year. That's not counting trips. Whenever she goes on a trip, we pay her fare plus a portion of the coach's fare, and if a piano player goes, we pay a portion of his fare. If 6 girls go, we pay 1/6 of their whole expense of the trip.
Which makes gymnastics a very elitist sport in this country.
Tracy Talavera wasn't born a star. It took sacrifices by her parents, the Mulville Hills, and of course by Tracy herself. On those magical days when it all comes together, everything seems worth it. What a day, starting at 6 a.m. Interesting to note, when Tracy Talavera was on the Johnny Carson show before she came on, she didn't know what Johnny even looked like. At 13 years old, she'd never even stayed up that late. We hope you're staying up late because we've got more to come from Jacksonville. We'll get to it after this. There's been a great outpouring of affection among the fans here in Jacksonville for the compulsories, which even Kurt Thomas admitted to me can be a very boring affair. We had crowds of 5,000 and 6,000, and tonight you will find very few empty seats in the 12,000-seat Coliseum. We take a look at the standings right now, and the men's all-around, Bart Connor is sitting up on top with Jim Hartung and Peter Vidmar in second place. On the women's, as we take a look right there, this is after 2 rotations. Tracy Talavera is sitting just ahead of Kathy Johnson. Sometimes, gymnastics is a misunderstood sport. People think it's complicated, but Marshall Avner managed to reduce it to simplistics for us.
Chain around my finger because I was fascinated by the fact that when a chain got shorter, it would automatically spin faster. Tonight, you'll see this principle being used by the gymnasts. When the gymnast's body is long, it's not as easy for them to flip and somersault, and the judges tend to give them more credit when they do it that way. When they tuck their body up into a ball and make it short, they can flip faster, and hence it's easier, and they don't get as much credit. This is called tuck position, and when the body's long, it's called layout position. There is one key intermediate position, and that's the pike, with the knees straight and the body just bent at the waist.
It's a simple matter of tucks, layouts, and pikes, for which you get scores. And to translate all that, let's go back upstairs to Charlie Jones. Charlie?
Well, you certainly clarified it for us. While we have just a moment here, Marshall, update for everybody what is happening in the men's competition.
Bart Connor was favored. He is leading. He has 96 points. But then the race really develops. Jim Hartung, 95.2 points. Only 1 1/2 tenths of a point ahead of Vidmar and Gallimore, both tied at 95.05. An incredible battle for third place. First place is still open for grabs. Then where the going really gets tough, we have Larry Gerard and Phil Cahoy in that nebulous 5th and 6th spot. Mike Wilson on the hot seat, 7th position. Anybody moving into that top 7 will bump one of those men's dreams right back to not being an Olympian.
All right, Nancy, while we're watching the competition, Jackie Costello on the beam and Trina attempting the floor exercise. What is happening as far as the ladies are concerned?
It's tense, Charlie, as always.
It's tense here, and I'm not even competing.
Tracy Talavera is getting ready to compete. Kathy Johnson is leading right now, but she's gone one more event than Tracy. It's going to be interesting. Also, Julianne McNamara, our national champion, is in seventh place right now, so it's going to be tough for her to fight her way back. Jackie finishes a nice routine.
I have one thought. When all of the contestants were introduced tonight to the standing ovation, you know, there's a lot of crying going on. I wonder if we're going to get through this night without all of us breaking down in tears. It's that kind of an evening because, as everyone knows, with the boycott, for these youngsters, this is the Olympics.
And Charlie, it is definitely an emotional experience. I know what it's meant to me just to be a member of the Olympic team and to be called an Olympian. It's so special, and every single one of these kids has worked so hard for it.
Next up on the beam will be Tracy Talavera. Now, she is leading coming into this rotation. Kathy Johnson has taken over the temporary lead. That is, of course, until Tracy performs on the beam.
And Charlie, Tracy's coach was also my former coach, Dick Mulvihill. It's interesting to note, Dick can never stay in the gym when we're on the balance beam. He stays for every other event. He's by the apparatus in case we fall. But he gets so nervous on the balance beam, he goes out of the gym.
She needs a 9.4 to hold on to first place.
Nice. Aerial right into 2 back handsprings. I'm impressed with the way Tracy is relatively unaffected by the fame that she's gained in the last few years. She's just a good old hometown kid.
And I think maybe that her father started it all. He put together a beam and a set of bars in the backyard.
Concentration is the name of the game on the balance beam.
Of course, the music in the background is from the floor exercise. 5 events going on at one time.
Very nice. Pummel horse work on the balance beam.
A little version of the Thomas Flair, ladies style.
Little bobble on that back somersault.
Does her experience, even at age 13, pay off under this pressure?
Oh, definitely, Charlie. Going for the dismount. Very nice. Clean routine. Tracy is happy with that one.
And now her coach will come back in the gym, and Tracy said, "It's all right, Coach, I did okay."
Boy, sigh of relief there.
Now, I must say this about her coach. Last night, he started to go out, but he stopped and he watched her on a monitor. He said, "That's just the same as going out," and then he came back in. Now we have a conference going on at the high bar. Jim Hartung will be up next there. Jim is currently in 2nd place. This is through 4 rotations, 4 of 6, 2 events to go for the men. Jim started in 3rd, has moved to 2nd behind Bart Connor. He's 0.8 of a point behind him.
You know, oddly enough, Jim is a business major, and judging by the fact that he's known for his sense of humor and the humorless expression on his face now, I imagine he's treating this as strictly business, and he should. Good start for Hartung. Backstalder. Backstalder, immediate half turn. Towering heck ball. I don't think Jim knows the meaning of hold back. Jams the feet through. Inverted giants. Having a usual good meet for himself. For the dismount. Full twisting, double flyaway. Rock solid. Jim Hartung, Nebraska.
And listen to the response of the fans here at the U.S. Olympic trial. There is a conference on Tracy Talavera's score. Let's go back to the high bar. Replay.
Here it comes. He does two somersaults, a half twist on the first somersault, a half twist on the second somersault. The tiniest of steps. I'm not sure if the judges even saw it. Jim Hartung's pleased with that routine. He never looks at, there you go, a smile. You just saw something first on NBC, a smile from Jim Hartung.
In the middle of a competition.
Absolutely.
Here's Brian.
All right, Charlie, we'll come back indeed for Jim Hartung's score. Jim, just one of many people who, as we've mentioned a couple of times tonight, very deeply affected by the U.S. boycott of the Moscow Olympics. It's a very tough position these young people are in. They have been training for this all their lives, yet they do indeed have a patriotic duty, and in fact, some of them are a little young for this to come to them. Here's some opinions on the boycott.
The fact that we're not going to the Olympics hasn't really deterred my training. I've made sure that I think through this Olympic Games and hope to prepare for another one, so it hasn't affected me too much. But I know for some of the other athletes, it's been very difficult to train for this, knowing that we will not be going to the Olympic Games.
Well, it's really hard for me to accept the boycott, I guess because I'm selfish, because I've been training for it. But I guess our president felt this was the best thing for us to do, so we have to follow him.
The Olympic boycott has kind of hindered my performance in a way that when it first was announced, I was kind of really disappointed because the Olympics was my last opportunity to compete in a big major meet. And so it has hindered my performance to a sense, but this last meet, or this last month, I've got motivated quite a bit because I realized I want to go out being in the top 6.
Well, I'm very disappointed, but I feel that it's probably the only thing that our country can do as a unit. And I'm very upset with what the Russians did, and I'm sorry that we have to look like the bad ones and not them.
We do not mean to belabor the boycott issue, but think back to when you were 13 and 14 years old. How much would you have understood if someone had told you you couldn't get a chance at your dream because a nation had invaded Afghanistan? It's kind of mind-boggling at this point, Charlie, when you consider the age of these people we're watching tonight. We're getting set for Cahoy on the parallel bars. So, Charlie, I go up to you.
And you saw Tracy Talavera score a 9.8, so she is back in first place. Jim Hartung had a 9.7 on the high bar, so that should hold him comfortably in second place. And now let's go to the parallel bars. Next up is the national champion. Oh, don't you love that?
What a cutie.
This
What
is Bill Cahoy, who now stands 5'10", one of the tallest gymnasts in international competition.
Charlie, he's actually 5'11", from what I understand, and no wisecracks for me about that picture. At that height, I'm not going to mess with him. Also from Nebraska, teammate of Hartung. I imagine Mr. Cahoy right now would love to fall into a little bit of the good fortune that his teammate has experienced.
Can he use his height to an advantage in this event?
Oh, especially in this event. You see, parallel bars is primarily a swing event. When you have more of you to swing, chances are you can keep going with a lot less effort. Now, here comes a very tricky movement. A Diamondov, a full turnaround one arm, preparing for the dismount. 1.5 twists to a good score for Phil Cahoy. He's happy with that one. I got a feeling he's going to find himself in the 7th spot of that Olympic team. We'll see, Charlie.
Now let's move to the floor exercise. Next up is Beth Klein. Beth needs a 9.35 to be in 6th place. So that would put her into the magic circle.
And Charlie, it's really been tough on Beth. In yesterday's compulsory round, she fell off on the balance beam. And look at her at age 6. Quite a cutie there. Beth has really had to try to come back after the fall on the balance beam. She's doing a wonderful job.
She was a national champion in this event.
And with the 10. As I stated before, it's not perfect anymore. Scoring in gymnastics has changed. The girls can receive up to a 10.6, but it depends on the amount of difficulty in the routines.
Beth is in the 8th grade at the Sunflower School in Covina, California.
Nice. Top double back. Beautiful. She landed well. Lands it well. Charlie, you said that Beth is in 8th grade. I am so impressed with her expression on this event for an 8th grader. She really can feel the movement. It's very extended up on the balls of her feet. be 1 or 2 tenths. Otherwise, a clean routine, Charlie.
Beth Klein in the floor exercise. Just a moment ago, Phil Cahoy got a 9.5 on the parallel bars. Let's look again to Beth Klein. Nancy?
I said at the top of the show, Charlie, Beth was a dynamic tumbler. Look at this. She goes for her double full. And this is where she has a problem, though, because it's at the end of her routine. She's running out of breath, lands a little low.
Parallel bars. Let's go down to Brian and Kurt.
Okay, Charlie. One of Ron's stronger events, Kurt?
This is one of Ron's better events, yes, but he's got to keep cooking now. He did a good routine, and the pressure was on. He handled it.
Brian, could you ask Kurt for me, how is the development of Ron Gallimore as an all-around gymnast? We know he's great in the floor exercise. We know he's great in the vault.
Kurt, Charlie upstairs wants to know about Ron's development as an all-around gymnast. That he's great in the floor ex, he's great in the vault, but is he developing in the other areas?
Yes, he has. He's really come on in the past couple of years. He's broken into the international scene. And here you see him really catching a nice tight stutz to a handstand. Here's his dismount, high tuck double back, good landing, a little bit of hop there.
Now, you have been right on the scoring all evening. What are you giving?
I say about a 9.5 for that routine.
And with a 9.5, he would pretty much lock up a berth on the team, would he not?
Well, he's got one more event, and it could go either way. He's in a good position right now, but he still has to go through high bar, and he's got to hit high bar.
And maybe it's left to me to state the obvious, that Ron Gallimore, if he did earn a berth on the Olympic team, would in fact become the first black gymnast on a U.S. Olympic team. I had a chance to talk with him yesterday. He said, yes, indeed, he would be very proud of that fact, and believe me, he is very conscious of it as he operates here tonight. Next up is Peter Vidmar, so we'll go back upstairs to Charlie and Marshall.
Let me give you an update on Beth Klein's score in the floor exercise. She got a 9.65. She started tonight tied for 13th because of the beam problem last night. She has moved all the way from a tie at 13 to the number 6 spot. So right now, she is in the magic circle. Peter Vidmar will be next up on the parallel bars.
He looks cool, but I know the taste in his mouth. At this point in an Olympic trials, you're simply counting the routines. After 10, 12 years of training, all of a sudden you say to yourself, 2 more routines and I'm an Olympian. Now Peter mounts on 1 bar. It's relatively unusual, but getting more common as gymnastics evolves. Walks gingerly into the middle, being careful. Easy does it. That's a tricky, very tricky move. Gets to a handstand. He's just fighting the mistakes. Behind him, you see Art Sherlock, one of his coaches. Peter in a tiny bit of trouble. Saves it well, regains his composure. Fighting hard, fighting his distraction, trying to concentrate on what he's doing. No mistakes. He gets off, makes another one. 1 step. Pretty good exercise for Peter Vidmar. He's happy.
And that's the reaction of his mother. Peter, as we mentioned, the national champion from UCLA, and he told us when he was talking to Marshall after that competition that at Ohio State that was the finest performance that he had ever had, and he was so very pleased with it. Ron Gallimore's score, by the way, to do a quick update, he had a 9.45 in the parallel bars, and so that means that Ron will should stay right in that number 4 position, which is exactly where he is.
You know, Charlie, these men are performers. They're not just athletes. They're out there one at a time. People smile at them from the audience. They smile back, and they really look like they're keeping their cool. But I've been into Olympics. I've been into Olympic trials. The 2 trials were the 2 toughest meets of my life. I know how fast their heart is pounding.
Bart Connor will be our next competitor, and let's go down to Kurt Thomas and his sidekick, Brian Gumbel.
Thank you, Charlie. Indeed, I think we're in for a real treat to watch Bart Connor. He is a world champion on the parallel bars. What makes him a champion, Kurt?
I think it's the uniqueness of his routine. He's got some originality parts. He's very consistent. He's tight and he doesn't make any errors up there. And that's probably the most important factor on parallel bars. You can't move your hands around a lot and you have to just hit those tricks.
His philosophy is that perfection is the key, not necessarily difficulty in gymnastics. He says his major goal is to make the routines look effortless. Do you buy that in terms of philosophy of gymnastics?
Yes, and that's the whole object of gymnastics. Make it look easy, swing right through it. Don't use muscle, but use swing, and Bart does that a lot in his exercises. He's progressed very slowly, and he is the type of gymnast who's very, very particular.
And we spoke a bit about that ace bandage on his right arm. This requires a great deal of strength. Will it bother him?
I don't think it'll bother him, especially when he's up there. When you're up there, you don't feel a thing. All you do is go through your routine, go through it in your head, and go through it on the bars. When you land, that's sometimes when you feel a little bit of pain, or right before the next event, but not while you're up there.
You know him so very well as we wait for him to approach the parallel bars. Why particularly does he want to continue competing until such a really a mature age for this sport?
Well, I stated that he progressed slowly. What I meant there is he took gymnastics slowly. He worked on his basics very hard, and he's had a very good body for gymnastics. He hasn't had a whole lot of injuries, and that's enabled him to compete for a long time.
Bart Connor, a world champion on the parallel bars. Let's take a look.
Here he's mounting from the side, straight up to a handstand. There's a 1.5 twist there to a glide straddle up on one bar. This is called an English press to a handstand. Very nicely done. That's an original part for Bart. Reaches into the middle bar. So stutz to a handstand, which is a half turn to a handstand. There's a Diamondov. A little bit of a step, that's a deduction. A front uprise. Pirouette, just to change positions. Another stutz. A little trouble right there. Went forward and did a front uprise right away. A little nervous, I guess. Taking a couple little hand steps that he doesn't need. Nice dismount. Step forward. Got in a little trouble there, so I think he'll score around a 9.45, 9.5.
Either mark would keep him in first place in the men's all-around standings. Before we leave you, we should note that Peter Vidmar came through with a 9.45 on his parallel bar exercise, and we'll come back with Mr. Connor's score and much, much more from Jacksonville and the U.S. Olympic Gymnastic Trials right after they time out for these messages from your local station. Live in Jacksonville, Florida at the U.S. Olympic Gymnastic Trials. Men's and women's going on the same floor. We take a look at the men's all-around standings. Bart Connor sitting up in first place with a very healthy lead. You see Ron Gallimore now in fourth place. In the women's all-around standings, this is after there are 4 exercises. Tracy Talavera sitting in first place. Kathy Johnson giving her a run for the money, as is Marcia Frederick. Despite an 8.75 in the vault, she has pulled herself up. Here's our 5 events going on right now, our 5 exercises. The high bar, the parallel bars, and the vault for the men, the beam, and the floor exercise for the women. When I noted earlier that Ron Gallimore has moved into 4th place in the men's all-around standings, and that should he make the team, he would become the first black gymnast to ever make the team. Ron Gallimore is an unusual young man with a famous father. His father was Willie, and Ron remembered him well.
I started gymnastics when I was 11 years old. I started gymnastics and I worked for about 2 or 3 years, and I began to think, well, God, why am I in gymnastics? Gymnastics is a more individual sport. It's one-on-one. It's me out there by myself against the equipment. It's how much you put into the sport, how much you're going to get out.
But were you at all intimidated about being a black gymnast in a sport dominated by whites?
No, I don't think so. I think that by being black in gymnastics, a sport that was dominated by whites at that time, it may have encouraged me to even work harder and to try and maybe be the first in the sport of gymnastics, maybe a sort of a pioneer, and try and get things going, and maybe even prove to a lot of other blacks that that gymnastics could be a sport for them also. There's a lot of short black people also that not necessarily that don't have the opportunity to play basketball and football because of their size. Gymnastics may be the sport for them.
How important is it to you that you would be the first black gymnast to have a place in that team?
Well, as I said, being the first black would mean a lot, because I would finally be in a position that many people would observe and would watch, and it'd probably encourage a lot of other blacks. As far as how much it will mean to me personally, I think that it would sort of let my family and all my friends and everyone who's sacrificed so much just for me to compete in this meet.
Your dad would have been happy too?
I think so. My mother is.
Here we see Ron Gallimore. Kurt, you've been in so many meets with that young man. How was it for him? Was it more difficult?
It has been tough for him in the past because he had a couple problems with his schools. He's transferred from LSU to Iowa State. But the past year, he's done very well. He's come up, and he's really working hard. He's psyched. He wants to make this team, and he'll be on it.
There you see it. Bart Connor got a 9.65 on his parallel bars routine. We're going to see some young ladies on the floor exercise. And before we get to that, we get a bit of an explanation of that exercise from Nancy Thies.
Have you noticed how the tumbling on floor exercise has gotten so much more difficult? Instead of single backs, the girls are doing double backs or multiple stunt tumbling runs. Well, a lot of that is due to this floor exercise mat. It has spring coils underneath it that provide not only more spring on the tumbling runs, but also provide protection on the landing.
Actually, it's a sixth place tie. Phil Mahoney and Larry Giroux.
Now we will know during this floor exercise what Tracy will need to win the competition as soon as we do Kathy Johnson's score.
Oh, double back somersault. That was low on the landing.
There's a conference on Kathy Johnson's score.
Nice punch front somersault into a double full. Little personality here. Now watch this, Charlie.
What's this? Artmatics?
Since they changed the rule, you can use more than one instrument, so...
He's the piano player, choreographer, assistant coach, and resident genius.
He is quite that. Going for a last tumbling run. Double full. Tracy's on the team. What a joy for this cute little 13-year-old. The magic whistle. She's happy. She knows she's made it.
And this is Jim Hartung only moments ago on the vault. And he, too, is in very good position for an Olympic berth.
That's right. He's got a bad ankle, remember, and this is an event that really hurt him. He's low squat on the vault because of his ankle, I'm sure.
Folks, and seems very, very happy. I know what it's like to live away from home. That's tough. It's always nice to have your folks right there with you.
And again, this is a classic gymnast. Would I be incorrect if I said this was the greatest classic gymnast in the history of U.S. women's gymnastics? That particular style that seems to be all of her own now?
I think it's hard to compare gymnasts now with gymnasts of the past, because somebody like Linda Matheny, who was absolutely outstanding. She was 5 years ahead of her time in terms of dancing, and yet, of course, she wasn't doing the difficult tricks that the kids are today. I think gymnastics is an entirely different sport. Oh, great round-off, back tuck. Little bobble there. You know, it's hard after doing such a difficult stunt to come back and do the easier things in your routine.
Remember the time in London she told us the little secret of keeping the leotard snug around the waist? She has a rubber band in it. Never forget that. She was snapping it.
Very clean backward roll sequence. Look at the extension in her upper body. I can see she's playing it a little conservative here.
Voice you heard was Larry Gerard's voice.
Ready for the dismount. Nice double full. There's your mom. Gymnastics for the United States in the whole world is just unbelievable. Winning a gold medal at the World Championships on the uneven parallel bars 2 years ago. It was the first gold medal ever won by an American gymnast, female gymnast, in a major international competition. First tumbling run. High double back somersault. She nails it.
Now, in all honesty, does she care if she finishes first first or third as long as she makes the team.
Well, I think, oh, that was a little low. A few tenths off there. I think that for Marcia, she wants to make the team, but she's been fighting for that #1 spot for the last few years. She wants it. I don't think she's going to make it, though. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how Tracy does.
And how Kathy Johnson does. Those are the two that are ahead of her in the competition.
Marcia has really turned into a versatile gymnast. In the beginning, when she did win her gold medal on the uneven parallel bars, everyone thought, well, she's good on that event, she's decent on vaulting, but she has problems in the other events. But I don't agree with that now. She's really become an all-around gymnast. A little low on the landing, the fatigue is setting in.
Marcia Frederick in the floor exercise. Currently in... So he needs, just like just what Ron Gallimore, that good, solid routine to come off with a big smile. The 9.6 to 9.7.
Charlie, but it's like walking a line, and you know if you take one step off, it's disaster. It's a very difficult routine. He's a young guy. If he can keep us cool, he's an Olympian. Now all he has to do is keep him constantly saying that to himself. Is the big trick? So far, so good. He's hanging in there. He's only seconds away. I'm sure he knows it. The head vault, he's still in there. Reaches under. Here comes the dismount. He can taste it. One giant swing. Dismount. He's on the Olympic team. 18 years old. Peter Bidmore, UCLA, the first Olympian.
And was first at our national championships. Beth was third. Both of them came into this competition favored to be members of our Olympic team. They both had some hard luck. Be interesting to see if they can make it.
And in case you joined us late, we don't want to belabor the point, but Julianne does have an injured left ankle, almost scratched from the competition last night. In fact, we were told that she had withdrawn. We then found out about 20 minutes later that she was going to stay in. So this is the drama of the Olympic trial.
Charlie, last night after the meet was over, everyone had left. The gym was quiet. The dust had settled. And I came back into the gym. And there was Julianne, her teammate Tracy Talavera, and their coach Dick Mulvihill working out. We're getting ready for today's competition.
You're kidding. This was at 11 o'clock last night.
But I know it well. Since Dick was my coach, that's his style. Pressure is not off till the meet's over. Very nice planche there. Now watch this. Back to circle on the balance beam.
It's a very unique move.
And she will get credit for some originality there. A nice, solid back somersault.
All right, as we finish the routine with Julianne, as she goes for a dismount, Ron Gallimore is on the high bar. Let's go to Kurt and Brian.
Indeed, he is on the bar, and he's got all eyes on him. Take us through it, Kurt.
Okay, he's almost finished here. He's just doing his invert giants, which are a requirement on horizontal bar. Did a beautiful straddle front. Now he's doing a staller, preparing for his dismount. Right now, I know he knows he's got it in the bag. Right there.
Oh, what a landing.
He knows it. He's psyched.
13 years of age, Northbrook, Illinois, an 8th grader.
She also uses Charlie. Look at this first tumbling run. Outstanding. Double pike. She stepped out of bounds, though. That'll be a 10.
I feel like I'm in a bull ring.
Nice, clean, full twist. Now watch her style here. People can appreciate the fact that she is so young, Charlie. To be able to get out there and look like a seasoned competitor, I really am impressed.
She stands 4'9" and weighs, she says, 77 pounds. I mention that only because even at that age and that size, they do smidge a little on their weight.
Well, Charlie, I was walking around the other day asking them for their statistics, and as always, and I remember it well, nobody wanted to tell their weight. Very nice double full, a little low. Such feeling.
Olay, Amy Koopman. Hi. 8.85. It cost her 0.5 of a point. Just falling on the mount, which was a simple mount.
Charlie, I think she's thought about it, but right now she's up on that balance beam. She's thinking about her routine, what she has gone over and over and over in practice. I figure that the girls spend about 40% of their practice time on the balance beam. That's what a tough event it is. It's a nice front somersault. We said Beth was a dynamic tumbler on the floor exercise. Tumbling up to the balance beam. Watch this move. Look at the strength of flange, Charlie.
And when she dropped out of that, was that a mistake?
No, that was planned. It looked very smooth. So far, she hasn't had any problems. There's a nice turn on the head on the balance beam.
How's she doing?
I think Beth has a great future in front of her. At her age, she's doing outstanding. Very clean back handsprings. You know, Charlie, when I made the team in '72 at age 14, I was the youngest one to ever make the team, and now that's the average team for the girls competing. The average age, excuse me. Nice!
Double back!
Oh, great routine. Winning on down the line, it's just an outstanding a member of the team.
Oh, and let's read them off. Tracy Talavera, Kathy Johnson, Marsha Frederick, Lucy Collins, Amy Koopman, Julianne McNamara, and the alternate Beth Klein. There are the scores right there, your U.S. Women's Olympic Gymnastic team. And let's not forget that those 12 young men and women will go on a 5-city, 2-week tour of the United States and then compete in 2 meets in Europe. No, Moscow is not a part of their future, but yes, making an Olympic team has been for quite a while a part of their dream, Nancy.
Brian, it's such an exciting thing just to be a member. We've talked about it before. It's just an honor, and it's something that stays with you throughout your whole life. You are an Olympian.
I think you said that to me as we were coming out in the car. You know, you said you can win gold medals and you can set records, but eventually you're just a name in a book. But once you're Olympian, you're always an Olympian.
Nobody can ever take that honor away from you, and I'm thankful to be an Olympian. These kids, oh, it's so exciting that now they have a chance to say that they were on our United States Olympic team.
You're close to so many of the girls. How many of them have a realistic chance of going at it again in '84?
Well, the way women's gymnastics is, very few. Usually you have a season or a peak age of maybe 3 years, and it's tough for these kids to go another 4 years, especially the ones here. They've trained, they've been through the emotion, and it's tough to stay up there for another 4 years.
You may have heard all the applause and all the laughter in the background. That was for Pauletta Hunter, who does a comic routine on the floor exercise mat, for which he just got a 1. He posing as a she. We are waiting for the introduction of the team. If you think you've seen some emotion so far, watch the reaction of this crowd when this team is introduced. Perhaps no young people, at least in this sport, have been asked to make the sacrifice that these young people are making.
You're right, Brian, and sometimes, you know, when I was on the team at age 14, oftentimes I think about it, I don't think I realized it at that young of an age just exactly what I had done.
I was going to ask you, particularly with the women, and I use the term loosely because we're talking about 13 and 14-year-olds in some cases. You know them so well. You're a good friend of many of them. Do they really understand why they're not going?
I think they understand it in their minds. Maybe it's hard in their hearts. They've trained so very, very hard, but I know, walking into the Olympic arena in 1972, to me it was the ultimate gymnastics meet, but it wasn't the Olympic Games. It became the Olympic Games when I got older and I realized what the prestige of being an Olympian and the things that could happen to you having been named to our Olympic team. So it'll be interesting to see how they look back on this in the next few years.
They are very young, but I don't think the moment is going to be lost on them. at least on this at this point in their lives, because right now is an emotional night for us as we just stand here. You can imagine what it is like if you are waiting backstage to be introduced to this throng, and they've all got their flags, and they're waiting to cheer because they won't get a chance in Moscow.
I don't think the people at home can quite feel the feeling here. We've got people all over this arena with American flags waving it, a huge American flag behind us. A lot of patriotism. It's such an honor to be a member of the United States Olympic team.
Here comes our team. They are trying to gather the 12 members of the team and the 2 alternates backstage. Look at the scores one more time as we wait. Here's the women's scores. Tracy Talavera, just 13 years old, sitting up top. She's followed by Kathy Johnson, one of the veterans of the crew, and Marcia Frederick, another veteran. Lucy Collins, Amy Koopman, Julianne McNamara, and Beth Klein is the alternate.
Still has to be decided because Beth and Julianne were tied for 6th place.
And on the men's team, here we go one more time. Bart Connor at the top, followed by Jim Hartung, Peter Vidmar, Ron Gallimore, Phil Cahoy, Larry Gerard, and Mike Wilson. And marching out first, Tracy Talavera, just 13 years old.
And Brian, I'm having a hard time holding back the emotion myself. Tracy, coming from the same team that I competed with, I know it's like, I know the training that she's been through. It's been a tough year for her.
Kathy Johnson.
And emotion here too. Kathy, I can relate to what she's been through. She's the oldest one here. She's fought the odds. It is emotion. And Marcia, what she's done for gymnastics in this country, in the world, United States gymnastics.
Marcia Frederick, followed by Lucy Collins in 4th. In 5th, here comes Amy Koopman.
Amy Koopman, I don't know if of all people, if she knows what she has really done. She is so young, first on the scene.
And as Julianne McNamara and Beth Klein come out, I want to go up to Charlie Jones.
Brian, as we have been caught up in the emotion and the feeling, Marshall Abner, you were a 2-time Olympian. What is it like? What comes back into your mind from this moment?
Charlie, it's like reaching that moment that you've been working for so long that sums up your whole life at that point and makes it all seem worth it. It's like a student when he thinks he's finally achieved his doctorate, or someone that's worked for completing a building, some long, long goal, and you always wonder if you should quit. You go through the trials and tribulations, and like that, it's worth it. You're glad, and you have something to carry with you lifelong.
And I think I have this one thought, Bryant, that goes through my mind. Tonight, our athletes, our United States athletes, have painted a beautiful canvas, and they have painted a canvas of gymnastics. But because of the boycott, it'll be just a limited edition. Bryant?
It is an incredible moment, Charlie Jones. Youth, in this case, is not wasted on the young, Kurt Thomas.
No, it is not. I think we have the best team we could possibly field out there right now. All those guys standing up there are dazed.
It's funny, as you watch them, they are all shaking their heads like, I don't believe it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that, you know, these guys have worked so hard and trained so hard for what they're doing, and now it's all come true.
And now they are all standing at attention as the public address announcer introduces the coaches of the Olympic team for women. I turn that over to you, Nancy.
Ernestine Weaver, she too has done a lot for our sport. A collegiate coach, a great motivator for all the kids. I think they're going to enjoy working under her.
And the assistant coach from Oklahoma, Paul Zirk.
Paul Zirk, the assistant from Oklahoma. And as you see the balloons floating down, no, you have not stumbled on the political conventions. They'll be down the road this summer. Here come our head coaches, Francis Allen.
And the assistant men's coach, Bill Meade.
And his assistant, Bill Meade. What a night it has been. It has been all we expected and more. It has been all we expected in terms of the competition, in terms of the intensity of it, and certainly, and perhaps above all, in terms of the emotion of it. For these young people, it hardly matters at this point that Moscow is not in their future. For the time being, they are Olympians, and no one will ever take that away from them. The confetti, the applause, the balloons, it's all part of it. For these young people, this is Moscow, and it's been our pleasure to be a part of it. For Charlie Jones, Marshall Abner, Kurt Thomas, and Nancy Thies, and all the NBC people here that have gathered to bring this to you, a very proud Brian Gumbel saying thanks very much for joining us for the U.S. Gymnastics Trials. This NBC Sports exclusive has been brought to you by Walker, America's best-selling muffler, installed at over 15,000 service stations and repair garages. And by Light Beer, everything you always wanted in a beer, and less. The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson will be seen in its entirety immediately following local news.